At 2:17 a.m. on September 3rd, Detective Michael Doyle's hands shook as he loaded $20 million in criminal cash into an unauthorized FBI evidence van with unofficial credentials. He looped security cameras 18 minutes before. By sunrise, Chicago's most trusted cop vanished with the biggest organized crime heist ever, but left one clue that could save his dying son. But Michael didn't realize his own partner was already working with the criminal organization. If you've got a minute, hit subscribe and like. This story only gets crazier from here. Michael's hands trembled as he stacked the final bundles of cash into the federal evidence truck. $20 million in criminal organization money surrounded him in the underground bunker. More wealth than he'd ever imagined in one place. The concrete walls felt like they were closing in, and his breathing echoed in the cramped space. Sweat dripped down his face despite the cool temperature. Every second that passed increased his chances of getting caught. The unauthorized federal operation upstairs was holding, but barely. The unwitting patrol officers he'd recruited thought they were part of a legitimate raid, not knowing their Detective Doyle had become Chicago's most wanted fugitive. His earpiece crackled with radio chatter. Federal teams responding to reports of conflict at criminal facility. Michael's blood turned to ice. Real FBI agents were already en route. Agent Chen had been hunting him for months, and now she was probably leading the response team personally. But Danny had less than 18 hours before brain swelling became irreversible. The German doctors were standing by in Munich, but they needed payment confirmation immediately. Without this money, his 14-year-old son would pass away just like his mother had 3 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on him. To save his son's life, Michael had become the very type of person who breaks the law that he'd spent his career pursuing. Above ground, automatic weapons fire erupted. The criminal organization had set a trap, and his unauthorized federal team was caught in the middle. Real federal agents were surrounding the building, while criminal reinforcements closed in from all directions. Michael was trapped 30 feet underground with $20 million in taken money, while two armies converged above him. He grabbed the last evidence bag and sealed it shut. The truck was loaded. Now he just had to escape alive. That's when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in hellish red. Someone had cut the main power, and Michael could hear voices shouting in Spanish echoing down the tunnel entrance. The criminal organization knew exactly where he was. Michael pulled out his service equipment and moved toward the tunnel system he'd memorized from previous investigations. The storm drains connected to the Chicago River, but he'd have to navigate half a mile of underground passages while carrying evidence of the biggest taking in the city's history. Footsteps pounded down the metal stairs. Multiple sets moving fast. Michael dove into the tunnel just as the first criminal enforcer appeared in the vault doorway. Muzzle flashes lit up the underground chamber as projectiles sparked off concrete walls inches from his head. He crawled through the drainage pipe, dragging evidence bags behind him, while conflict echoed through the tunnels. Water rushed around his knees and the sound of pursuit grew closer. His phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Danny's asking for you. Doctors say we're out of time." Michael pressed forward through the darkness, knowing that failure meant watching his son pass away. But Michael's transformation from decorated cop to master criminal didn't happen overnight. It started with a phone call that changed everything. The call came at 11:47 p.m. while Michael was counting evidence bags in the Chicago PD warehouse. Danny's voice was barely a whisper through the phone. "Dad, the doctor wants to talk to you." Michael's blood ran cold. His 14-year-old son had been fighting leukemia for 8 months, and late-night calls from the hospital never brought good news. Dr. Martinez's voice was clinical but gentle. "Detective Doyle, we need to discuss Danny's treatment options immediately. The current therapy isn't responding as we hoped." "What does that mean exactly?" Michael asked, his pen hovering over an evidence tag marked Sinaloa Cartel, $200,000 USD. "There's an experimental treatment in Germany. The clinic in Munich has developed a targeted therapy that's shown remarkable success with cases like Danny's, but we need to act fast. They have one opening left, and we need payment confirmation by October 15th. Michael's heart sank. "How much?" $450,000 for the initial treatment, plus ongoing care costs. The number hit him like a physical blow. On his $89,000 detective salary, that might as well have been $1 billion. "After October 15th, Michael asked, though he dreaded the answer. "The next opening isn't until spring. Danny's condition is deteriorating too rapidly. He won't make it that long. Michael heard his son crying in the background. The boy had overheard everything. Dad, am I going to pass away like Mom did? Danny's voice cracked through the phone. Michael's wife, Sarah, had passed away from cancer 3 years ago when the experimental treatments were too expensive and insurance wouldn't cover them. He'd sworn he'd never let that happen again. Nobody, Dad's going to figure this out, I promise. But as Michael hung up, staring at the evidence room filled with millions in confiscated criminal organization money, he had no idea how he could keep that promise. That's when he dropped the evidence bag. Bills scattered across the concrete floor, crisp hundreds and fifties. Michael scrambled to collect them, and as he counted, something didn't add up. The arrest report said $200,000 confiscated from the Sinaloa criminal organization raid, but Michael was looking at least $275,000 in cash. He checked the other bags from the same raid. Each one contained 30% more money than the paperwork indicated. His partner Jake walked in, saw Michael surrounded by scattered bills, and chuckled. Don't sweat the small stuff, Mikey. Criminal organization math never adds up anyway. That comment stuck with Michael. Over the next week, he used his detective access to audit evidence from the past 6 months. What he found made his stomach turn. 23 criminal organization raids with miscounted cash totaling $2.8 million in discrepancies. Evidence bags with cut seals that had been retaped. Digital records that didn't match physical inventory. Someone was systematically taking criminal organization money. Multiple someones. Michael stared at photos of Danny in his hospital bed while surrounded by evidence of taken illegal money. These individuals had destroyed families, sold harmful substances to kids, harmed innocent people. If their money could save Danny's life, wouldn't that be justice? The moral calculation seemed simple. The execution would be anything but. Late one night, while cataloging evidence, Lieutenant Rodriguez appeared for a surprise inspection. Working late again, Doyle? Don't burn yourself out on the paperwork. Michael's heart hammered as Rodriguez walked within 3 feet of the evidence bags he'd been examining for theft potential. If the lieutenant looked closely, he'd see the bills Michael had spread out to count. Just trying to stay caught up, sir, Michael managed. Rodriguez nodded and moved on, never noticing the scattered cash that represented more money than Michael would make in 3 years. But as Rodriguez left, Michael spotted something that made his blood freeze. A small camera mounted in the corner, pointed directly at the money storage area. Someone had been watching the evidence room. But who? 3 weeks later, Danny's condition took a dramatic turn for the worse. Jennifer, Michael's ex-wife, brought her new boyfriend David to the hospital. David can get Danny into the Johns Hopkins trial program, Jennifer said. All we need is for you to sign custody papers. Danny, pale and weak from chemo, shook his head. I want to stay with Dad. David, a wealthy surgeon, put his hand on Jennifer's shoulder. The choice is yours, Michael. Sign the papers and Danny gets treatment, or... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. That night, Michael made his decision. He'd spent 3 weeks studying the evidence room like a crime scene. He mapped every camera angle and found a 47-second blind spot near the vault. He studied the digital logging system and discovered audit alerts had a 12-hour delay. Security guard Edmund checked the evidence room every 3 hours like clockwork. Michael's plan was surgically precise. He entered the evidence room at 11:47 p.m. during Edmund's patrol gap. He removed $75,000 from 3 different evidence bags that each contained over $200,000. Bills that wouldn't be missed in the massive seizures. He updated the digital records to show corrected amounts, then planted paperwork showing a mathematical error in the original count. But as he finished updating the computer records, he heard footsteps in the hallway. Keys jingling. Edmund was returning early from patrol. Michael's fingers flew over the keyboard, saving the false records as the footsteps got closer. He pulled up a diagnostic screen just as Edmund's key turned in the lock. Everything okay in here, Detective? Computer glitch, Michael said, his voice somehow steady despite his racing heart. System was showing error messages. Think I got it fixed. Edmund nodded and continued his rounds. Michael waited 5 minutes before leaving, the $75,000 hidden in his jacket. The next morning, he filed an official report. Discovered counting error during routine audit. Original amounts overstated due to bills sticking together. Corrected documentation attached. His reputation for thoroughness made the report unquestionable. That's $75,000 paid for Danny's immediate treatment needs, but it was nowhere near enough for Germany. And Michael had crossed a line he could never uncross. A week later, FBI agent Sarah Chen arrived to investigate cartel money laundering patterns. She was specifically tracking disappeared cash from Chicago seizures. "We're seeing consistent discrepancies," she told Lieutenant Rodriguez. "Someone with institutional access is operating a sophisticated theft operation." Michael realized his small theft was part of a much larger problem. Other cops had been stealing cartel money for months, maybe years. Detective Luis Vasquez drove a $90K Mercedes on a $65K salary. Internal Affairs knew but looked the other way. After all, it was just criminal money. But Agent Chen was different. She was running forensic accounting on every seizure, looking for patterns. Michael discovered something else that made his blood run cold. The hidden camera in the evidence room had been recording everything. Someone had footage of his theft. Worse, he wasn't the only one being watched. Over the next 5 months, Michael perfected his theft technique with methodical precision. Danny's condition was steadily deteriorating, and the German clinic's deadline was approaching fast. Michael developed a complex rotation system to avoid detection patterns. Different evidence bags from different raids, different amounts stolen at different times, different methods of concealment. He replaced stolen cash with newspaper bundles wrapped in real bills on the outside. Month by month, his thefts escalated. Month 1, $75,000 from 3 separate lockers. Testing security response. Month 2, $85,000 using the newspaper replacement method. Refining technique. Month 3, $120,000 with digital record manipulation. Expanding scope. Month 4, $140,000 through multiple small thefts, avoiding detection thresholds. Month 5, $80,000 final collection, preparing for major score. Total $500,000. But Agent Chen's investigation was systematically closing in. Her forensic audit identified Michael's unit as the source of the missing money. She requested access logs for the past year. Michael had 48 hours to clean his digital trail before the investigation focused on him. Using his police database access, he modified timestamps on his evidence room entries. He created false records showing legitimate overtime work during theft times. He even planted digital evidence suggesting external hackers had accessed the system. Then Luis Vasquez got arrested in a completely unrelated corruption sting. Internal Affairs found evidence of systematic money skimming on his computer. Michael realized the entire operation was about to be exposed. He activated his emergency protocol, wiped all digital traces using police IT maintenance access, destroyed physical evidence using the departmental shredder, created an alibi by volunteering for a high-profile court case. But Jennifer delivered an ultimatum that changed everything. David proposed, "We're getting married and taking Danny to Baltimore for treatment. You've had your chance, Michael. I won't let our son die because you can't provide." That's when Agent Chen found Michael's keylogger on the evidence computer. She knew someone had been monitoring her investigation, someone with administrative access, someone who knew exactly what she was looking for. The federal net was closing fast. The auto shop raid, $2 million. Michael's informant Carlos contacted him with intelligence that would change everything. "Detective, the Sinaloa people keep $2 million in operational cash in the basement of Martinez Auto Repair on the west side," Carlos explained during their secret meeting in Grant Park. "The location is protected by corrupt cops who get $50,000 monthly to look the other way." Michael had learned the names through his own investigation. Detective Morrison and Sergeant Blake, both dirty cops who'd been taking cartel money for years. But a federal task force was planning a major cartel roundup the following week. Multiple agencies were involved, and security would be tightened across the entire city. Michael's window of opportunity was rapidly closing. That same day, Danny collapsed at school during lunch period. The paramedics rushed him to the hospital, and the doctors delivered devastating news. "His white cell count is critical," Dr. Martinez explained. "Without immediate intervention, we're looking at weeks rather than months. The German clinic needs payment confirmation within 2 weeks, or they'll have to give the slot to another patient." Michael planned the auto shop job like a precision military operation. For 2 weeks, he conducted surveillance on Martinez Auto Repair from different locations. He parked across the street in unmarked cars, documenting employee schedules, delivery patterns, and security routines. The shop opened at 7 a.m. and closed at 6 p.m., but Michael noticed lights in the basement windows until nearly midnight most nights. He studied the building's layout using city planning records and previous police reports. The basement had been flagged in a 2019 inspection for structural modifications, which Michael now realized were security improvements for storing cartel money. Creating the forged federal task force documentation required careful preparation. Michael used the department's official letterhead and seal, accessing the document creation software during legitimate overtime hours. He researched federal operational procedures, studying real task force authorizations to make his forgeries perfect. The rookie officers he recruited were chosen specifically for their inexperience and eagerness to impress. Tommy Rodriguez, 23, had been on the force for 8 months and always volunteered for extra duties. Mike Chen, 25, was ambitious and followed orders without questioning details. "This is a joint federal operation," Michael told them during the briefing. "DEA intelligence indicates significant narcotic storage at this location. We go in fast, secure the premises, and let the feds handle the processing." On October 8th at exactly 6:15 a.m., Michael led what appeared to be a completely official police raid. "Chicago PD, search warrant!" he shouted, bursting through the front door with the rookies behind him, weapons drawn according to standard protocol. The garage owner, startled from his morning coffee, immediately raised his hands. "Officers, what's this about? We're a legitimate business here." Michael showed him the forged warrant, stamped with official seals. "Drug trafficking investigation. We have reliable intelligence about narcotic storage on these premises." "I don't know anything about drugs," the man protested in heavily accented English. "This is just auto repair shop." Michael made a show of examining the warrant. "According to this document, we're authorized to search all areas of the building, including basement storage areas." He sent Rodriguez and Chen to thoroughly search the main garage, the office areas, and the customer waiting room, while he personally accessed the basement for safety reasons and to secure any potential evidence. The basement was exactly as Carlos had described it. Concrete walls, bare light bulbs hanging from the ceiling, and the smell of motor oil mixed with dampness. The cartel's safe was hidden behind a false wall that looked like legitimate storage shelving. Michael used bolt cutters from his evidence kit to break the lock, revealing neat stacks of cash bundled with rubber bands and organized by denomination. $2 million in hundreds and fifties, more money than he'd ever seen in one place. Working systematically, Michael loaded the money into official evidence bags, sealing each one with department tape and marking them with case numbers that would appear legitimate in any audit. But as he sealed the final bag, he heard something that made his heart stop. A car door slamming in the alley outside the building. Spanish voices speaking rapidly, getting closer to the basement entrance. Someone was coming, and they weren't supposed to be there according to Carlos's intelligence. Michael had exactly 90 seconds to finish loading the money and create a convincing cover story. He grabbed the remaining bundles with desperate speed, stuffing them into the last evidence bag just as footsteps echoed down the basement stairs. Victor Martinez, nephew of the cartel boss and the real owner of the auto shop, appeared at the bottom of the steps. He was carrying a 9mm pistol and looked ready to use it. Michael immediately badged him with complete authority. "Chicago PD, drop your weapon. You're under arrest for money laundering and narcotics trafficking. Your associates upstairs are already in custody." Victor, not knowing that the raid was completely fake, looked confused and scared. He dropped his gun and raised his hands without resistance. "I don't know anything about drugs, officer. This is just my uncle's auto shop. I came to check on things." "Save it for the federal prosecutor," Michael said, handcuffing Victor to a pipe. "We know about the cartel connections." Michael processed all the evidence paperwork showing only $400,000 confiscated from the basement, carefully documenting the seized narcotics currency while hiding the other $1.6 million that was already secure in his patrol car. He filed detailed arrest reports, photographed the crime scene from multiple angles, and submitted documentation that would pass any departmental review. Everything looked completely legitimate to outside observers. 3 days later, the cartel realized their money was missing. They knew corrupt cops had access, but couldn't determine which one. Michael found his car windows smashed with a note. "We know you took our money, cop. Return it or your family pays." Agent Chen's audit now showed $3.8 million in total missing money. Her suspect list had narrowed to 12 officers. Lieutenant Rodriguez called Michael into his office. "FBI is asking pointed questions about your unit's asset seizures. They want detailed interviews with everyone who handled cartel money in the past year." That afternoon, Danny collapsed again. This time was worse. His condition is accelerating, Dr. Martinez said. Without immediate treatment, we're looking at weeks, not months. The German clinic needs payment confirmation within 72 hours. Agent Shen reviewed security footage from the auto shop raid. She noticed Michael had spent 8 minutes in the basement alone, far longer than necessary for a routine search. She requested detailed analysis of all evidence collected during the operation. Then the cartel sent surveillance photos. Danny leaving school, Jennifer at work. The message was clear. They knew Michael's family and wouldn't hesitate to use them as leverage. Michael was running out of time on multiple fronts. Carlos revealed intelligence about the ultimate prize. The cartel was moving $7 million through an elaborate money laundering operation at the federal courthouse. Corrupt federal marshal David Torres facilitated transfers between evidence facilities, banking networks, and offshore accounts. The plan was absolutely insane. The federal courthouse had military-grade security, biometric access controls, facial recognition systems, armed federal marshals with shoot-to-kill authorization, real-time surveillance monitored by federal agents, and electronic tracking systems that reported suspicious activity instantly to multiple agencies. But Michael was becoming increasingly desperate. Danny had exactly 10 days before the German treatment window closed forever. Michael spent a week using his police liaison access to study courthouse security protocols in excruciating detail. He obtained building schematics through legitimate law enforcement channels, memorizing every entrance, exit, and security checkpoint. He identified Torres as the weak link in the system after observing him for 3 days and noting his patterns. The underground garage, where armored cars delivered cash for evidence processing, operated on a precise schedule. Transfers happened every Tuesday and Friday at 2:30 p.m., with Torres personally overseeing the documentation. Creating the fake FBI credentials required Michael's most sophisticated forgery work yet. Working late nights in the evidence room, he used the department's advanced document creation equipment to produce identification that would pass electronic scanners. He studied real FBI credentials, copied security features, and even replicated the magnetic strip encoding using equipment borrowed from the department's cybercrime unit. The hardest part was programming his false identity into the federal database. Michael used his access to law enforcement networks to create Agent Michael Davidson, complete with service history and security clearances. The identity would only last 24 hours before automated systems flagged it as suspicious, but that was all the time he needed. On October 12th, at exactly 2:45 p.m., Michael entered the federal courthouse posing as FBI Special Agent Michael Davidson, conducting what he described as a routine security audit of evidence transfer procedures. His forged credentials passed every security check. The biometric scanner accepted his fake fingerprints that he'd programmed into the system hours earlier. The facial recognition system had been temporarily updated with his false identity. He moved through the courthouse with the confidence of someone who belonged there, nodding to security personnel and even stopping to chat with a federal marshal about enhanced security protocols. He found Torres in the basement evidence processing area, exactly where intelligence indicated he would be during transfer operations. "Marshal Torres," Michael said, presenting elaborately forged federal transfer orders. "Agent Davidson, FBI Financial Crimes Unit. We're implementing new security protocols for cartel evidence transfers effective immediately." Torres examined the documentation, which included official seals, case numbers, and authorization codes that looked completely authentic. "Today's scheduled transfer needs to be redirected to our secure federal facility for enhanced processing," Michael explained with complete authority. "New protocols require additional security screening for amounts over $5 million. Torres, completely unaware that he was being scammed by a master manipulator, nodded professionally. "Of course, Agent Davidson. Security is our top priority." He redirected the incoming armored car to the underground garage where Michael waited with a stolen FBI evidence truck that he'd taken from the federal motor pool using forged requisition forms. "Federal transfer authorization confirmed," Michael told the armored car guards, showing his fake credentials and forged documentation. "Load everything into our vehicle for immediate transport to the secure facility." The guards, following proper protocol, verified Michael's credentials and transfer orders before systematically moving $7 million in cartel cash to his truck. As the final bag was loaded, Michael's radio crackled with information that made his heart stop beating. Agent Chen is in the building for her scheduled 3 p.m. meeting with Torres regarding the ongoing cartel investigation. Michael's blood turned to ice water. Agent Chen, the FBI forensic accountant who had been systematically hunting him for months, was upstairs in the courthouse while he was stealing millions of dollars directly below her office. Even worse, security alerts suddenly triggered when the system detected Chen's federal keycard being used simultaneously in 2 different locations within the building. Security breach detected, came the announcement over the courthouse intercom system. Lockdown initiated, all exits sealed pending immediate investigation. Michael was trapped underground with $7 million in stolen cartel money, and federal tactical teams were mobilizing throughout the building. He had exactly 4 minutes before heavily armed agents reached the parking garage. Michael triggered the fire alarm, forcing an evacuation. In the chaos, he accessed city utility tunnels through the courthouse basement. He navigated the underground maze to emerge at a subway station 6 blocks away. He abandoned the FBI truck and transferred the money to a motorcycle waiting at the rendezvous point. Agent Chen reviewed the courthouse security footage within hours. She identified Michael entering with fake credentials and issued a federal arrest warrant. But Michael had vanished. The cartel escalated their threats. They kidnapped David, Jennifer's boyfriend. "Your cop stole $9 million from us," they told Jennifer. "Get it back in 48 hours or we start cutting pieces off the doctor." Danny's condition became critical during a medical transport. The German doctors delivered their final ultimatum. "We need confirmed payment and patient arrival within 48 hours, or we give the slot to another patient." Federal agencies launched a nationwide manhunt. Airports, borders, and transportation hubs were monitored. Bank accounts were frozen. A $100,000 federal bounty was posted for Michael's arrest. But the cartel had infiltrated witness protection. They knew where his family was hidden. Michael faced an impossible choice: surrender to save his family, or attempt one final theft to fund their escape forever. Which brings us back to that underground bunker at 2:17 a.m., with Michael crawling through storm drains while carrying $20 million in stolen cartel money. The tunnel system was a maze of concrete pipes and maintenance passages. Michael had memorized the route during previous drug investigations, but navigating it in the dark while dragging evidence bags was nearly impossible. Water rushed around his knees and the sound of pursuit echoed behind him. Flashlight beams cut through the darkness as cartel enforcers followed him into the tunnels. Michael's phone buzzed with another text from the hospital. "Danny's brain pressure spiking. Need immediate transport authorization." He pressed forward through the underground river system, knowing that every second counted. The storm drains connected to the Chicago River, but he still had half a mile of tunnels to navigate. Behind him, voices shouted in Spanish. They were gaining ground. Michael reached a junction where 3 tunnels met. He could hear sirens above ground. Federal agents had arrived at the trucking facility. The entire area would be swarming with law enforcement within minutes. He chose the tunnel that led toward the abandoned subway station where his motorcycle convoy was waiting. The evidence bags were getting heavier with each step, but he couldn't abandon the money, not when Danny's life depended on it. 20 minutes later, Michael emerged from a drainage grate 6 blocks from the cartel facility. The motorcycle was exactly where he'd left it, and the money transfer took less than 3 minutes. But as he started the engine, he heard something that made his heart stop. Police sirens heading towards Chicago General Hospital. Chicago General Hospital became a battlefield. Federal agents wanted to arrest Michael. Cartel enforcers wanted their money. Michael held the key to the $20 million while his son lay dying upstairs. "Your son has 6 hours before brain swelling causes permanent damage," Dr. Martinez said. "We need immediate payment confirmation to start emergency transfer to the German facility." Michael offered a deal to all parties. "I'll surrender the money and testify against cartel operations, but Danny gets medical treatment funded by recovered assets." Agent Chen considered the proposal. Captured cartel money could fund dozens of children's treatments. Martinez, the cartel enforcer, wasn't interested in deals. "You destroyed 3 years of planning. My bosses want you dead as an example." Michael played his final card. He'd been recording everything. Surveillance devices planted in cartel facilities during thefts, conversations proving federal corruption, digital evidence linking 23 corrupt officers to money laundering, recordings of pharmaceutical companies denying treatment to maximize profits. "You stole federal evidence and compromised ongoing investigations," Agent Chen said. "People could have died." "People did die," Michael shot back. Children denied treatment while cartel money sat in evidence rooms. My son is alive because I had courage to act when the system failed. Detective Luis Vasquez arrived with SWAT backup. He'd been working undercover for the feds all along. Michael's thefts exposed the corruption network we've been hunting for years, he explained. Martinez threatened to start shooting hospital patients. Give us our money or civilians die. Your choice, detective. Federal tactical teams coordinated civilian evacuation while maintaining containment. Michael realized his actions had created a crisis endangering innocent people. He provided the cartel money location to Agent Chen, testified in real time via video link to federal prosecutors, offered complete cooperation in exchange for Danny's medical treatment. The cartel members surrendered when faced with overwhelming federal response. Martinez was arrested on kidnapping and terrorism charges. Michael accepted federal charges but negotiated a plea deal. Suspended sentence in exchange for continued cooperation, exposing corruption throughout the law enforcement system. Danny received emergency medical treatment funded by recovered cartel assets. Treatment was initiated just in time, the German doctors confirmed. Full recovery expected within 6 months. Federal prosecutors offered Michael an unprecedented agreement: supervised probation and witness protection in exchange for testimony that would dismantle Chicago's largest criminal network. His evidence proved devastating in federal court. 31 corrupt officers across 5 police departments, federal marshals facilitating money laundering, pharmaceutical companies denying children's treatments, $200 million in recovered criminal assets. 89 cartel members were convicted on RICO charges. The entire Chicago drug trafficking network was dismantled. International connections exposed led to arrests in Mexico. Danny's treatment was successful. The experimental therapy eliminated his leukemia completely. Within 8 months, he was declared cancer-free. Michael was stripped of his badge, pension, and law enforcement credentials. He faced potential federal prison time, suspended pending cooperation. He became the key witness in the largest corruption investigation in Chicago history. His family entered federal witness protection. Public opinion was divided. Police unions condemned his theft and betrayal. Crime victims' families called him a hero. Medical advocates demanded reform in children's treatment funding. Michael's revelations forced comprehensive changes: complete overhaul of evidence handling procedures, real-time digital tracking of seized assets, independent oversight of police corruption investigations, federal legislation mandating emergency medical funding for terminally ill children. The cartel placed a $500,000 bounty on Michael's head. Federal marshals provided 24/7 protection for the entire family. 2 years later, Danny's cancer returned aggressively, a rare mutation resistant to previous treatment. The only hope was a clinic in Japan offering experimental therapy for $1.2 million. No remaining cartel money was available for medical funding. A former cartel accountant contacted Michael anonymously. He offered information about a hidden money cache worth $50 million in exchange for protection from remaining cartel members. Against federal orders, Michael returned to Chicago using a false identity. He risked a life sentence if caught violating his witness protection agreement. The accountant revealed the location: $50 million in cash hidden in abandoned subway tunnels, money intended for cartel leadership escape plans. Agent Chen tracked Michael's movements. She had to balance her duty to enforce the law with recognition of the moral complexity. Capturing Michael meant Danny died. Letting him escape set a dangerous precedent. Michael infiltrated the abandoned subway system. Using city infrastructure knowledge from previous escapes, he disabled automated security and recovered the $50 million. But instead of keeping the money, Michael created an automatic distribution system. He programmed the stolen funds to flow directly to children's hospitals. Danny would receive treatment along with dozens of other sick children. He created an untraceable donation system that couldn't be stopped once initiated, then surrendered to federal agents after ensuring the medical funding was secure. Federal prosecutors created an unprecedented arrangement. Michael would serve a reduced sentence in a medical facility near Danny's treatment center while continuing to consult on financial crimes. Danny received successful treatment in Japan. The experimental therapy eliminated his brain tumor completely. Full recovery was confirmed after 2 years of monitoring. He returned to Chicago as a healthy teenager with a mission to help other sick children. You saved my life and hundreds of others, Danny told his father. Michael received federal commendation despite his criminal conviction. His techniques became standard FBI training curriculum. The reforms he inspired prevented evidence room theft nationwide. Danny established a medical charity using his story. Funded by anonymous donations from reformed criminals, it provided emergency medical funding for children with terminal illnesses. Over 10 years, it served 3,247 children with recovered criminal assets. 6 months after the final theft, Michael served supervised probation while Danny recovered completely in Japan. The stolen $50 million funded treatment for 847 sick children. Agent Chen visited Michael at the supervised living facility. 89 cartel members convicted, 200 million recovered, Chicago drug trade destroyed, she said. Was it worth it? Michael watched through the window as Danny played basketball in the courtyard, healthy and alive for the first time in years. Ask the 847 families whose children lived because of that money. Danny called that evening from Tokyo. Dad, I'm coming home next month. The doctors say I'm completely cured. Michael Doyle, the Chicago cop who stole $20 million from cartels to save his son and accidentally saved a city. Subscribe if you think sometimes breaking the law is the only way to get real justice. Hit like if you would have done the same thing to save your child. And tell me in the comments, was Michael a hero or a criminal? Because honestly, I still can't decide.